All right. Jesus.
His name's
Let me have your attention, please.
Hi, Mr. Parker. You look stylish today.
I'm ready for it.
At least by the end of this year, because I'm studying for it.
You're doing fantastic. You're good at tone. Thanks. So we're going to talk today about reading schedule, sort of how the unit will be structured with the novel and then some other literature within it. And then we are going to have a full class discussion about the author's claim at the beginning of the novel. If you already sort of perused that, it's very brief. There will be 5 open-ended questions that we'll talk about. We'll do that after we talk through these dates. So, just as a reminder, with the due dates, this means your reading should be done when you walk in the room on that day. Okay, not that you have that day to do it. So, there are 12 chapters in the novel, broken up into 4 different due dates. It's pretty evenly spaced. You have a month for the first one because it's April right now. And that's not until May. So, or Friday. So Friday is the first section. The following Wednesday, the following Monday, and then because of Keystone exams and the disruption to the schedule that is, the 13th, 14th, 15th, there's a little bit of a bigger time frame between the 3rd and 4th due dates, and that'll be the Tuesday after Keystone's the 19th. You can bring the novel to Keystone so that when you're done taking them, you can finish the reading. So actually that section should be the easiest one, timing-wise to read. This isn't a particularly aggressive schedule. It's not like you should be losing your mind reading. It's spread out over, I think, a reasonable period of time. One of the reasons that it's spread out over those dates is because during the early stages of the novel, we are going to be doing some analysis of war poetry. I believe that war poetry is, in terms of a category, the most powerful form of poetry. I think some people think love poetry is, so go ahead and think that. Fine. I'm more into the whole war thing, whatever, because I think it captures some really potent emotions. So we'll deal with that in the next week and a half-ish as you're getting into the novel, as you're reading it at home. It's meant to work sort of collaboratively with what you'll be reading at home. And then you'll actually, so read, analyze, and then you'll write your own war poetry. If this works out like it has in the past, you'll also write some music with this unit. And you'll write some replacement endings to the novel. I'm just saying. Alright, so on Friday, I think, or maybe Wednesday, I can talk really loud, like I can do this. Like last night, when the power went out, my daughter was crying about it. I spoke loudly to her about the need to take the flashlight to the bathroom instead of telling me that it was dark. Because guess what happens when the power goes out? It's dark. That's what happens. So when she said to me, Dad, it's dark, I have to go potty, I said, take the flashlight. That's what I said. So I can do that projection thing. I'd rather not do that all period. I'd like to save that for my own children so they grow up damaged. So, we've had some conversations about this idea of like a disclaimer at the beginning of the novel. Because when we talk about fiction and nonfiction, one of the clearest images in my mind anyway is reading like the Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons and the Dan Brown novels that were popular maybe 5, 7, 10 years ago, where it was really divisive in the religious community because he made some claims that they were fictional. Like the first line of the novel is, "The Freemasons exist." That's the only thing that's true in this novel. They exist. That was it. And then it was like, this is fiction. And then still people are like, what are you trying to say about religious? It's fiction. Fiction's different than non-fiction. They're sort of opposite. So we don't get many disclaimers. This is the Law and Order illustration. Like, if this story happens to match something that maybe was on the news exactly 6 months ago, oops, we didn't mean to do that, right? Even though we all know that, like, the stories are basically projections of reality. So this is an interesting approach for a novel that's published in the 50s. There aren't that many novels I mean, this would be a modern novel, but we're not talking like current modern novels. This is sort of a different approach to a novel than maybe others that we'd read from this time period. And it starts with this claim about what the book is intended to be and what it is intended not to be. So we're going to answer 5 open-ended questions about that, about types of narrators, about author's intent here, as you look at the disclaimer. So if you're looking at your text, it's on the page next to the little Library of Congress index thing. It is as short as it looks, which some of you would have heard before. So there are 5 questions about it. We'll talk about these really quickly, and then I'll leave you some time to think through them, discuss them, and support them as you can with stuff in fact. You got one?
No, there's like 30 pages in my book that's just blank paper. There's no words on them.
Oh, that's clearly intentional cheating.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Yes. I'm going to write this story.
I got just 30 blank pages. They were like highlighted pages.
Alright, yeah. Okay, so the disclaimer starts with claims about what the novel is and what it isn't. Okay, so you're going to answer these 5 questions. Why does the author emphasize the book isn't meant to be an adventure? Does the novel intend to comment on other war stories? You have to infer that. Make an inference there.
You want us to answer these on our paper?
Yes, I do.
No, you said, we're gonna have it.
3, how can an entire generation be destroyed by a war even though it escaped from it? 4, is the author's own experience an important factor when considering the historical accuracy of the novel? If you know his experience, that may play into this. You can answer this question without knowing whether or not he experienced war. This is a theoretical question. The question of accuracy and author's experience. Are those things necessary? Do you have to have that together? Would I have to write only books about teaching English to mostly strange people? can I write something that I haven't experienced? That's a theory, philosophy question. And then 5, what type of narrator would be best suited to deliver a war novel? You have 3 choices there. They are first person, where the author knows his experiences well, but nothing of others' experiences, just what he sees, hears, thinks, feels. First person would be one type. What's another type?
Third person.
Third person, omniscient. Yeah, you're good. All powerful. So yeah, third person, all knowing, where he knows thoughts, feelings, and characters, where he knows what's happening in multiple places at the same time. And the other one is third person, limited. Third person limited functions sort of like a first person from one character's perspective, but wouldn't use first person pronouns like I, you. That's an opinion question. What type of narrator of those 3 would be best suited to deliver a war novel? Any questions? And you can work on those questions for about 5 minutes. I think that's enough time to think through and maybe extract some stuff, and then we'll discuss them together.
What time?
And your own perspectives.
Come next.
And I need 5 volunteers, please.
Me.
Okay.
I get third
Something.
Be long. Yeah, Mr. Barker, I want to volunteer for that.
You're 4. You be 2.
There's lots of questions in
How do you
there.
want to volunteer?
The novel intended to come out other war stories.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's from the Hunger Games.
Oh, I was gonna say yes to that.
Okay. You'll know what you
Do they
volunteer for in a
comment on
minute.
other war stories?
Yes, I assume so, because like we have to make just an assumption from the disclaimer.
So you can do this one here.
Yep. Well, only in English and let's see, English and world history.
So what you do, email the work to them or something?
Oh no, I save it on the flash drive and give it to them. Well, for Parker, we never turn our stuff in. Like he just make us talk about it and stuff like that. But for Brian, I just turn it on flash drive. Yeah, they were the only 2 teachers I actually use it for. Oh yeah, my engineering teacher.
Mr. Barker,
No, it's the number 1. And the author. The author skills. The
You have to
Jeff.
explain or answer on that.
Yes.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, can you get mine?
Those are the definitely not fun for. Not fun for the. Not for the death of not fun for the person doing with it. Disclaimer. Turn this thing down all the time because when this thing is up, it's a loud speaking thing. Okay, guys get in trouble for speaking out loud. Let's see it. The novel tends to comment on other war stories. What? Well, number 2 is weird because like you don't even. Well, I guess he kind of did say that it will simply try. It will try simply to tell of a generation of men who, even though they have escaped shells, were destroyed by the war. So maybe he is going to tell more than one story. I'll say yes. I'll say yes. It'll be it because no typer.
Is 4 supposed to be a
Because yeah, because think. Yeah, because
So therefore,
No, the whole thing is not a crack. The whole thing. You're running a marathon on probably too possible. You're running a mile. Does not matter. Go for cross country. 3 miles. It doesn't matter. You don't need energy.
Can you please, Adriana, did you say you go to that? So that's one of the team that never been to a Boston park.
yeah, he was.
You have to go before stage and you don't even first time it's like 3
I mean, sorry, when they have war stories, do they mean like one war, or do they mean
Jonah, don't eat for like 2 days.
different people in the same war? Oh, it doesn't matter.
That's just you don't eat before the day. If you eat the day
Let's see here. How can the entire generation be destroyed by war and to escape from it? That'd be bad if I saw all this. Okay. Yes, I did 5 third person. That way, okay, I love that. This is what I came up with. Yeah, third person. The number 3 is how can the entire generation be destroyed by war and then escape from it, or destroy the mentality of the men, and they become what they would call like women would not want to be interested in other men. Anyway, number 4, the author experienced an important factor when concerning the historical action of the novel. I say yes because that would inspire him or her to actually write the bloody story. For 5, what type of narrative would be best suited to deliver a war story? Third person for that thing, more concerning for the protagonist. Like, this makes sense to me.
5 questions. If you volunteer, you're going to ask a question, you're going to answer it, and then you're going to monitor the discussion. Okay? So, let's do this. If, try not to dominate the conversation, okay? That sort of happens. It's more of a problem than my earlier class. But try to let other people engage in the conversation too, even though what you have to say is probably way more important than what anyone else ever could say. So, if you can engage in the conversation in one of these, if you have one and you're looking at it and you felt strongly about, then wait for that moment or jump in early or whatever it is Steve. So, Jonah. Go. Ask the question, number 1, answer it, and then get some feedback from other people. Go.
Why does the author
Everything is going.
Why does the author emphasize that this book is not meant to be an adventure?
I said he emphasized that it's not meant to be an adventure so as not to offend anyone who is involved or hurt by the war. And he wants to set the tone earlier that this is not a book that is meant to emphasize the individual, but the people first.
Listen.
I said he wants to emphasize that it's not an adventure because he wants to let the audience know that it's not for their entertainment, but its purpose is to let them understand something that is like important.
Well, a big issue with war writing from today and from back then is that a lot of it is shown to be really glamorous and like romantic and amazing and all that stuff. And like even today we have like Tom Clancy novels, which is basically exactly that. And this guy's like, it's not like that. That's not what this is. It's not an adventure. It sucks. Death is terrible, and you should not think it's cool.
Personally, when I hear the word adventure, I think of something that's dangerous but has an aspect of fun, and this novel is fun. So, like, I don't know, when you hear it, you think of, yeah, the thrill or something, but not as dark, because, yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Cool, good. 2, who's 2, Emma?
Probably him.
Cool.
Does the novel intend to comment on other war stories? I said no, it just intends to talk about this specific novel.
I disagree with that. I think it is supposed to be a small commentary on other war novels. especially at the period, because there is a big issue with war being seen as like glamorous and good. And this guy's like, no, it's not. Stop saying that. And so he's trying to make the commentary that this sucks. I'm showing you how this sucks.
Technically, he said that it was meant to talk about the generation of the men who were actually in the war. So the way I interpret the question was like when they said war stories, they mean like it's more than just to one person's perspective. Like maybe there's like 10 different people that he talked about during the same time, but just different stories. So I think technically speaking, he's talking about more than one war story.
So, do you think he's saying that this is a better war story than others? Yeah. Will you elaborate on that a little bit? No.
Okay.
That's a really good question. Somebody should take that.
I don't think so.
No, isn't it? Someone else.
Maybe like I'm sure they can make their fun adventures, but this one just trying to capture the series aspect of it, not necessarily the property
Not directly to the question you just asked, but going back to the original one, I kind of disagree with JD because I think in the disclaimer he might be making a little comment like, people have been making it seem more glamorous, like you said, but I think the novel itself was just for him to tell people what he thinks the war was about and how people should take it seriously. I don't think he was saying it as an argument, like, I don't think he was saying it more of like you guys have all been like making it out to be really light and it's not, so I'm gonna write this to prove you wrong. I think it was more like him telling like a personal what he believes and what he thinks is important, and it just like happens to not be right.
Why is this a question before we read the novel? Like, I feel like it's kind of hard to answer.
Yeah,
Like, I was like, I don't really know.
Well, the question is about what he says his intent is. So when we get done, we definitely could have a conversation about how this fits in that puzzle of stories that we've heard recently. I think it's crucial that you ask that before, because then you can evaluate later if what he intends to do he actually said, like he actually did. Fair question. I think we're sort of projecting what the story's going to be like based on the disclaimer, right? Because we don't know.
Yeah. It's just like, I mean, it's not a disclaimer, so like.
So, I think for him, it may set this stage for us as like, okay, this is like serious. This is, his storytelling may be different than what we've experienced before, or what we imagine it's like. And that generation comment I think is important too. Because I think he's going to tell a single story, one person, single story, but he wants us to sort of extend it out. So, that's why that's a challenging question. That might be challenging to answer at the end, but I think before you want to consider, like, are we to compare this to other ones, or we just read it for what it is? Cool. 3.
Alright, number 3 asks, how can an entire generation be destroyed by a war even though they escaped from it? And I said that even though you can come out of the war alive, but mentally you can be destroyed by it because like all the memories, like all the traumatic events, it really get to your head. So like there are a lot of instances of like, for example, post-traumatic stress disorder. So that's just one of the ways you can be destroyed by it. And like it's all gets to as the war's over, you can just erase everything that happened and just go back to like normal life.
I thought they meant it as like citizens who weren't part of the war. So basically, I saw it as like there's still that tension in your country. If your country's at war with another, money is tight, and then there's always that fear that citizens can be hurt, and you know people who have died, and you haven't seen it up close, but you can imagine. There's still that stress in the air. You don't necessarily need to be a part of the war.
Yeah, it's true. Depending on what perspective like you're looking at from, like if you're a soldier being out from war, but like
I figured that like once the people come back from the war, I figured that like with the PTSD and the other mental problems they could possibly get, I figured that like the women would not be interested in actually reproducing with the men who come back from war, so they will eventually die out. Like, I'm being serious here. Like that's literally how it could work out.
Sexual attraction as a result.
No, but I'm not saying that as a joke. Though. I'm being serious though. Like I'm being dead serious. Like.
You look at the issues in war, right? Stepping back to family stuff, like divorce rates among men and women returning from war are significantly higher than national averages. Whether or not it's reproducing, but certainly that brings some stresses into a relationship that may not have existed.
But wasn't it the opposite? Like, wasn't there that whole thing that there was actually like
Maybe that was both those two.
He's still a war. But yeah, it's still after the war that was.
That would only be war.
Yeah, I don't know statistically. I know the divorce rates and suicide rates are significantly different. There are other societal issues that we face with returning veterans. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question though. Birth rates for children and all how that happens. No birth. Emma?
So I feel like the rate of divorce doesn't necessarily correlate to birth rates. So depending on, the state of the soldiers when they come back from the war and the economy and everything, you don't know, maybe more people get a divorce and more people have babies.
I mean, we looked at numbers on Friday, but the fact that in World War I, 37 million people dying is going to skew your population issues no matter how you.
How many people died in
World War II, 80 million? Yeah. So that's total civilians, soldiers, disease, everything else.
I mean, on the.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying it doesn't mean anything.
It's an interesting. So I think we're still speaking to the layers of this question, right? An entire generation doesn't just mean soldiers who fought. It obviously has that economic fallout, the emotional and society's fallout from it, on the battlefront, in places where the war isn't happening, but soldiers are going from and returning to. There are a ton of layers to that. So I think most people agree that like no one wins a war. There's a group that surrenders and there's a group that doesn't. But war isn't something that you win necessarily. It's ultimately leads to a lot of destruction. And we can argue about necessary or not. That's that. Okay. Okay. Let's do it. Switching gears here.
Is the author's own experience an important factor when considering the historical accuracy of the novel?